Clearly, the conditions are ripe for fascism to flourish there. Italy is Europe's third largest economy, yet its public debt is 130% of GDP. For context, that's second only to Greece. And the Bank of Greece is currently just a goat dancing around an open fire. Meanwhile, unemployment is high and politicians have been stoking anti-immigrant sentiments as more than 600,000 migrants have landed on Italian shores in the last 4 years. And on top of all of that, for joining us, just time for a quick recap of the week. And we begin tonight in South Carolina, home of ancestors that you may not want to look up on Ancestry.com. South Carolina held their Republican primary last night and Donald Trump won big, which was all the more impressive considering what had happened earlier in the week.
Donald Trump is now in a very nasty feud with the Pope.
Here's what Francis had to say. I'm quoting here. A person who thinks only about building walls wherever they may be and not of building bridges is not Christian.
Yes, this week saw a battle between an infallible force and an illogical object. And it was amazing. The most inclusive Pope in recent history questioned Trump's faith, which I guess... But these laws do actually tend to make a little more sense whenever you see someone slip up and suggest other reasons for why they may support them.
Voter ID, which is going to allow Governor Romney to win the state of Pennsylvania. Done.
Do you think all the attention drawn to voter ID affected last year's elections?
Yeah, I think a little bit. I think we probably had a better election. Think about this. We cut Obama by 5%, which was big. You know, a lot of people lost sight of that. He won. He beat McCain by 10%, and he beat Romney by 5%. I think that probably voter ID had helped a bit in that.
Oh, no! You're saying the thing that everyone knows, but you're not supposed to say out loud. That's like writing "I'm desperate to bone" on an online dating profile, or a band calling their reunion tour "We ran out of money." She actually went on to call him steady, honest, modest and kind. And his campaign was over right then and there. Because you know you've lost when your own mother is selling you to America like an unappealing blind date. He's steady, he's modest, he has a pet mouse. Honestly, he hasn't been with a woman in a long time and he really needs this. Please. So let's move on to the other big news here this week. The Supreme Court, the only thing that rules more than a crab with a knife in its claw. You rule, Stabby Crabby. You rule. And lawmakers in Tennessee are so shameless about this, they've got the whole thing down to a fine art.
It's such a common practice in the House, in fact, that many lawmakers have sticks they use to reach each other's voting buttons.
Look, if you are going to pervert democracy, could you at least do it with a less creepy stick? That looks like what an evil leprechaun would use to beat a child. And yet, whenever legislators like Debbie Riddle are asked about this actual voter impersonation, they say they've done nothing wrong and are only acting out of necessity.
We have a lot of votes. We have a lot of amendments. And there's times when we don't break for lunch and we don't break for dinner. We don't have bathroom breaks.
OK, well, quick suggestion. Have you considered getting some extra long voting sticks? They tend to help. The truth here is, voter impersonation fraud is incredibly rare. One researcher who tracked it closely found that from 2000 to 2014, there were 31 possible incidents in the entire country, out of over 1 billion ballots cast. Voter fraud is a problem the way that deadly knife play from crabs is a problem. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. There are cases where it has happened, but let's not overreact to one stabby crab. Now, as we discussed last week, the Republicans are saying they won't confirm a replacement for Antonin Scalia and spent this week refining their explanation for why, starting within hours of Scalia's death.
Well, we have 80 years of precedent of not confirming Supreme Court justices in an election year. OK, 80 years of not confirming Supreme Court justices in election years. The problem there, aside from the fact that America is more than 80 years old, is he is forgetting Justice Kennedy, who was confirmed in 1988. Although, in his defence, it is easy to forget that. We confirmed a lot of things that year, including the fact that Rick Astley will neither give you up nor let you down, and that it's possible to produce a crowd-pleasing blockbuster in which a grown woman fucks a 13-year-old boy. Oh, I'm sorry.
He didn't look 13. Listen to yourselves.
For the last 80 years, the Senate has not confirmed any nominee nominated during an election year.
Wow, that's intricate. For 80 years, the Senate has not confirmed any nominee nominated in an election year, and that is so close to being true. Unfortunately, it ignores Justice Brennan, nominated in 1956, and Justice Murphy, nominated and confirmed in 1940. So even by your own arbitrary 80-year time frame, there are between 1 and 5 exceptions to your own precedent. You're basically a baker going, oh, don't worry, there are no nuts in that, except for walnuts, cashews, almonds, peanuts, and the stray pistachio. Shit, I'll get my EpiPen. And Debbie Riddle is not the only voter ID proponent who has done this. Remember Wisconsin's Joel Clayfish? I mean, there is no way that he got caught doing it, right?
A cell phone video posted online shows Clayfish placing a vote for an absent assembly member. Clayfish says the online video is an attempt at character assassination.
No. That's not character assassination. It's unedited footage of something you obviously did. If anything, that is character autoerotic asphyxiation. Now, to be fair to Republican lawmakers, they were under increasing pressure not to capitulate this week when a group called the Judicial Crisis Network started releasing ads targeting them.
It's we the people. Sometimes the politicians forget that. The Supreme Court has a vacancy, and your vote in November is your only voice. This isn't about Republicans or Democrats. It's about your voice. You choose the next president. The next president chooses the next justice.
No! The current president chooses the next justice. We still have a current president that we chose. And I hate to sound like your dad here. I hate to sound like your dad. But you can't open a new precedent when we've got a perfectly good president already open. Finish the old president first. Also, New Zealand's media has taken to calling Stephen Joyce Dildo Baggins. A play on words which, frankly, should be awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature. And yet, we were still reluctant to cover this story until, incredibly, our hand was forced. It's true. This is his tweet. And you know what? You know what, Stephen Joyce? You're right. You're right. This was inevitable, Stephen Joyce. As inevitable as a large, floppy rubber cock smacking you in the face. So let's, in your words, get this over with, although I think we both know this will never be over for you. Your entire life will now be viewed through a dildonic prism. For instance, this seemingly innocuous tweet you sent last month of vegetables from your garden. You want to know what people picture when they see that now? Dildos, Joyce. Freshly harvested dildos. You know what? At this point, I would like to propose something. Any politician who has ever supported an unnecessary voter ID law should be forced to obtain a new ID every single time they want to pass a bill, just to make sure they are who they say they are. And yes, they might say, well, John, that's ridiculous. There is no real reason to make us do that, and it's so cumbersome it could prevent us from engaging in the democratic process. To which I would say, welcome to the fucking club. This means the Pope feels Donald Trump is not my Christian, hashtag not my Christian. And yet Trump still won. He still won. Although, perhaps the even bigger news last night was what South Carolina did to Jeb Bush. The side of plain white rice that nobody ordered. Jeb Bush dropped out last night after finishing 4th, despite really pulling out all the stops in South Carolina this week.
Barbara Bush appearing with son Jeb Bush on the campaign trail. Is she the closer?
No. She could not be the closer. You bring on the closer when you have a lead. When your campaign is where Jeb Bush's was, you don't need a closer, you need a fucking coroner. Luckily, by Monday, others were aware of this little factual problem and they'd made some corrections.
Well, it's been more than 80 years, I think about that long, since somebody was nominated in the president's last year.
OK, so more than 80 years since someone was nominated in a president's last year. That does get rid of Kennedy, who was nominated in the previous year. Unfortunately, it then lets in Fortas and Thornberry, both nominated to Supreme Court positions in 1968, which mathematically, unhelpfully, is less than 80 years ago. And when you're off by 32 years, you're off by an entire Adam Driver. Still, neither of them wound up being confirmed in an election year, which Ted Cruz undoubtedly had in his head when he took another swing at that same argument. And, look, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I kind of feel bad for Jeb Bush, because not only did he bring his mom along to help him campaign, just wait until you hear what she said about him.
What's left for me to say is that Jeb has been a great son, great father, great husband, married well, and is one of my 4 favorite sons.
Oh, no! Look, I know she's joking, but that is literally what you say about your 4th favourite son. second story tonight concerns breast implants. Some are against them, others believe they're fine in rare cases, and many believe you should be able to get them whenever the fuck you want. Sorry, did I say breast implants? I meant abortions. Tonight's main topic concerns abortions. And look, before you change the channel, I know this is a polarising topic. Although, interestingly, when the website Vox asked people in the street for their opinions, the issue wasn't quite as binary as it's usually presented. OK, well, not needing anyone to follow your stance is a healthy attitude to abortion, and it's also a terrible attitude with which to lead the Rockettes. You do you, Bethany. You do you, girl. You do you. Because the outpatient surgical centre requirement can be difficult to fulfil, as this Texas clinic discovered.
Explain again why it's going to be shut down, because this isn't wide enough?
Yeah, because right now the walls that we have, they're about 3 feet wide, and to be an ASC, it has to be 8 feet wide.
Now, I'm not saying width isn't important. In fact, in some circumstances, it's far more important than length, is a thing that I have heard. Penises, I'm talking about penises. But that 8-foot requirement is wide enough for 2 surgical gurneys to pass one another in a corridor, which is just not something that is likely to happen at a small abortion clinic. About 90% of abortions occur in the first trimester, when they are generally non-surgical procedures with no cutting and only mild sedation. They usually involve suction or just taking medication, neither of which require a large surgical facility. You don't need an operating room to take a pill, which is a good thing, because you wouldn't want an entire surgical team scrubbing in every time Larry King needed a boner. They'll get tired.